Okay, in this tutorial we're going to talk about printing objects with multiple parts or components. And we're going to use the same object we used in the last exercise, but we're going to make a few improvements to it. We're also going to make it multiple colors, which is actually possible in the 3D printer, even though the printer only prints one color at a time. So if we look back at our object, now first of all, I made a few little modifications already. I've noticed that the Methodist logo is printed in all caps. And so I went ahead and fixed that. Also, the Methodist part is larger than the university, and the university part is spaced out a little bit. So this is a better reflection of the Methodist logo. Now, another issue that comes up with some fonts and some things in Lightwave is that occasionally we get some impossible geometry when it comes to text. Now, if you look up here, you can actually see some of that. There's a little bit of an artifact right there. And I don't think that's going to be a deal breaker. First of all, it doesn't really show up in the model here. It just comes into play when it tries to put it into perspective view and to make the surfaces. Even double-sided, you see that there's something there. But in the case of a 3D printed object, I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is establish what our pieces are going to be. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to make the tower a different color than the base. So, easily enough, all I've got to do is print out the tower separately. And the base, I want to have a different color than the text. Now, that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. That will involve printing out this block with the letters added to it as one layer, and then having it printed in such a way that it will print the bottom base first. So from here upward, and then at a certain point when it starts to get to the letters, I will pause the printer and change the color. So we're going to have yellow letters which will glow against a black block, and the tower will be white. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere the letters to the block. But before I do that, remember we had an issue with the Methodist words coming out backwards. What we're going to do here is we're just going to turn them around before we even get to that point. So I'm going to do a modify, rotate, and I'm going to rotate those at 180 degrees. And then I'm going to move those to the front. So already we fixed that problem. Then we're going to basically put the words in the background, do a construct, Boolean, add. And then we no longer need these. So this becomes our final product. Okay, and so there's one other thing that we need to do here. What we want to do is we want to make this in multiple parts. And so therefore, what I want to have is the tower actually merged with the base piece so that I can actually glue the tower parts into the bottom part there. So to do that, we're going to make it so that they fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the base piece and put the tower in the background and do a Boolean subtract. And when I've done that, you will see that the base piece now has places to accommodate those towers. So once I've done that, then it's a question of making sure that they would fit naturally. So I'm going to leave the tower in the background, and I'm going to go in on those posts. Go to the first one here, and we want to make just a little bit of a space. So I'm in point mode. I'm going to select just those points there. Make it a little easier. And I'm just going to do a modify move, and I'm going to just bump those up just a tiny bit. Doesn't have to be much. Then I'm going to deselect those points, select those points, and bump that out just a little bit. And bump that out that way. And that should do nicely. And so if you see it's down here, you don't have to worry about the bottom one. We're going to leave that the same. So, but if you look close at the way this works, there's a little bit of a gap between the tower piece and the legs of the little post hole that's dug for it. So we've got one of them done. Then let's say we go on to this one next. And that should give us enough room for those posts. So then basically, all we got to do is export these as their own STL files. So we'll start with this one. This is the tower. So I do a file, export, STL. I'm going to put that on the desktop. I'm just going to call that tower underscore top. And this one, I've already reversed it and everything. File, export, STL, tower underscore bottom. And that's it. So now we're back over here at the MakerBot desktop, and we're going to load the individual pieces. So we go to add file, and on our desktop we've only got two parts. So we're going to load the tower top, and we're going to rescale it, and we'll go ahead and print that straight up and down. And we'll lay it flat, and we're going to move that over to the side a little bit like that. And then we're also going to bring in, and I'll show you why in a minute, the tower bottom. Rescale that as well. And that one, remember, we're going to want to print that so that the words are facing up, like so. And we can turn it around that way so we can see the details. And we're going to move that, say, over here a little bit. Now we want to make these as big as we can. So, in order to do that, if we're going to rescale them, if we were to make that the biggest we could, that would yield 157%. So, if I were to simply scale it up by 157%, that is the tallest I can get. So we're going to apply the same scaling factor to the other piece, because these have to be the same scale. Otherwise they won't fit. And so there is your object. So what we're going to do is we're going to save this as a thing. Do File, Save, and on the desktop we're going to put tower thing. And so therefore, when you print it out, you can simply delete whichever one you aren't using. So you can open this up like it is now, and let's say we want to do the tower first. We'll just go ahead and delete this, and we'll do a preview for this one. Okay, so you see here this is the finished rendering that the computer thinks will print, and you can see that the tower has separate rafts that it's going to be sitting on, and all we got to do is export it, and we're going to put that on the desktop as tower top. We'll just, to be sure, tower top underscore print, and it's been saved. Then basically we Control Z it to get back what we deleted. Then we delete this one, and we can move this one anywhere we want. And let's say we preview that as well. Okay, and so here's the second piece, and if we look at this, it appears that the lettering is not necessarily going to be problematic. I don't see that artifact causing any problems, and so we should be alright. So we'll simply export this. And I'll just change that to Tower Bot. And that's it.